Welcome to Bottle Rocket with Elena Sucheva, your top hockey podcast. Hi everyone, welcome back to Bottle Rocket. I'm Elena here with Maeve and Jerry. Today we're joined by senior writer for Florida Hockey Now, Alan Greenberg. Alan, great to have you with us.
Great to be here.
Listen, is there, they hate to use the word panic, but is there panic in that the Florida Panthers dressing room? That team looks like it's not going to recover.
Well, I don't think there's panic. I think there's just resolution that this year is kind of lost. The spirit is always high here. The players, the coach especially, keeps the spirit high and the motivation high. But I think they're resolved. They're just not going to do it. Write it off, come back healthy next year, and start all over again.
I don't like to hear that because there's something like 26 games left, right? That's a lot of games. Got a lot of good players. You got a nucleus. Got a great fan base. Why not think rally?
Well, I mean, as I said, they're thinking positive. It's just that the odds are really rough. I mean, they're sitting at the bottom, and it's not so much the 9 or 10 points they're out, but when you have to jump 5 teams who are also playing and getting points at the same time because they're playing each other, it's almost impossible. A couple of years ago, when the Panthers qualified for the playoffs on the last day by a single point, at this point in the year, after some 55 or 60 games, they were only 3 points out of a playoff spot. Now they're, I think, 10 points, something like that out. So the odds are rough, and it's going to be a tough grind.
Bobrovsky's getting a bit older and maybe not as sharp as he once was. Do you think he still has what it takes to carry this team?
That's an interesting. Bobrovsky is, I think, 37, 38. He's in his last year of the contract, which is not a great time to have a poor year. His numbers are not good. His save percentage is well below 9. His goals against is well above 3. He's not having a good year. He does come up with the big saves at times, though. So you can't really fault him. He comes up with the big saves, and he had to deal with a defense this year, which was at times somewhat amateurish. I mean, they were missing at times some of their good players. Seth Jones hasn't played in a month, and he's really a key man on defense. Dmitry Kulikov, who's probably their best penalty killer on defense, has been out since game 1, I think, or game 2. So it's been rough on him. You can't really blame it on him. I can't imagine what his. I'm sure Florida's going to want him back, but I certainly can't see him getting his a long-term deal at $10 million like he has now. So who knows? And his backup, Tarasov, when he came here, his numbers were not that great, but he's played very well. Now, he was hurt in the last game before the break, so it's kind of a mystery as to when he's coming back. They may have to bring up another goalie from Charlotte or somewhere as a backup to Bobrovsky.
After the Red Wings, the Panthers have the second most players at the Olympics this year, right?
Right. Well, they put it like this: they have a diverse team from all over the world, and some pretty good players from all over the world. Yeah. It's fun watching them.
Absolutely.
This is a good case, which I believe was made by Chico Resch. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jerry and Elena, that the Olympics is not a good thing because of exactly what you said, Alan. You got a bunch of guys there. The team is hanging on to try to make the playoffs. And, this is a situation where you can get 2 or 3 more guys get hurt. You can hang out the white flag of surrender. And I agree. I do not like this business about the NHL in the Olympics for that reason and other reasons. And one of the reasons is this cockamamie schedule with all these games back to back, and but it's there, so we got to deal with it, and that's it. But I don't think it's a good idea.
Well, the schedule is crazy. I think that the players certainly love it because it's the greatest stage in the world to be in the Olympics. So they're all looking forward to it, and it's great to watch. Now, of course, there's risks with everything. Look what happened with the tournament last year when Kachuk got hurt, and he ended up having a lost season. And then this year he had surgery off season. He missed the first, I don't know, 45, 47 games. So you don't want something like that to happen. But I think they'll be a little bit more disciplined in the Olympics this year than they were in the tournament last year.
Any news on Barkov, when he'll be back?
Certainly not during the regular season. There's no news. He is skating. He's not participating in drills, but he's back skating. And I don't know if they bring him back. I honestly can't say how they could do this with the cap situation. Don't forget, they brought in Seth Jones because at the time they brought him in, Kachuk was on the sidelines on long-term injured reserve, so they had cap space. So they brought in Jones and Marchand, gave Marchand a new contract. It didn't matter in last year's playoffs because there was no cap. This year's playoffs, there is a cap. So based right now, if Barkov would come back today, Bill Zito would have to do some fancy juggling to get him back in the lineup.
Do you think they regret trading Spencer Knight?
Well, I don't think so. That was a trade that benefited everybody. I mean, Spencer was looked at as the goalie of the future here, and he certainly performed like he was worthy of that title. But trading him and bringing in Seth Jones was integral in their playoff run last year. I mean, Jones was absolutely great, so I can't fault that trade. Now, unfortunately, they don't have much now of young goalie talent coming up. A lot of their young goalies now and in the past found success elsewhere, like Markham and of course Spencer Knight. And for Spencer, it gave him an opportunity to be number one somewhere with a rebuilding team.
You come from Brooklyn, and you remember the Brooklyn Dodgers, and I remember the Brooklyn Dodgers. It's my hometown team. And we had a hate on for the New York Giants like you wouldn't believe. And you remember that, particularly when Leo DeRocha went from Brooklyn over to the Giants. Now, I'm seeing a hate between these two Florida teams that I can't believe.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Well, tell us why it's beautiful and how it happened.
It's great. All these years, these two teams coexisted in Florida. Tampa Bay, of course, had the edge in their on-ice performance. They had their edge at the box office. And it was not until maybe 2020 that the two teams were relatively equal on the ice. And the familiarity breeds contempt because these teams see each other not only 4 times in the regular season, and they met, I don't know how many times, 3-4 times in the playoffs in recent years, but they see each other before the season. So the year that they when they beat them in the playoffs, the Stanley Cup year, if you go through that total season, they played that team about 10 times. And all it takes is a couple of incidents. The incident with Ekblad knocking out Hagel, they still haven't forgotten it. And it's like some of the old-time rivalries that Stan would remember with Louis Fontanato and the Rocket and Bert Olmsted and some of them where these grudges lasted for years. But now they're playing together in the Olympics.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is that two coaches, Paul Maurice being a great guy, the other guy on the other side, these guys are like gentlemen, and the hate seems to have spilled over to the coaches. Am I right?
They've done nothing to stop it. I don't remember some of the comments after some of these crazy brawls that they've had, especially in the preseason. Cooper said something like, "Well, boys will be boys." And that's it. And they certainly don't do anything to stop it. They seem to relish it. I mean, Cooper is he's a good guy. He's a quiet, methodic guy. So he has a very dry sense of humor, just like Maurice. They almost encourage this behavior. The fans love it, that's for sure.
Alan, Panthers signed Marchand for a long-term contract, and he's not immortal. Do you think they're going to regret it?
Well, I don't think they're regretting it. They will at some time in the future. I can't see him playing 6 years, certainly at not the level he's been playing. I mean, Marchand that has to be one of the greatest late season trades since Butch Goring came to the Islanders. Marchand, remember, was the absolute hated enemy here. He and Sam Bennett were just at. I mean, there was no end to it. Marchand was the guy you love to hate. All of a sudden, he's on your team, and not only is he on your team, but he's been playing great. I mean, his performance in the playoffs last year was magnificent. His performance this year before getting hurt, I think he has 20 goals. He got hurt. He's been out on and off the last maybe months, maybe. So I don't think. I think that contract was a reward for him staying. He probably took I can't call it a hometown discount because he wasn't here very long. But Zito has a way of encouraging guys to stay and take a little bit less money because he signed Marchand, Ekblad, and there was Bennett, I think it was, 3 guys whose contract were in contract years, who had great years and deserved a nice raise, and he was able to squeeze them all in. There is an advantage. Everyone is going to bring it up. There's no state tax in Florida, so the players kind of like that, so they can take a little bit less. But I don't see Marchand lasting at his level for 6 years, and so the worst case scenario is an eventual buyout. But it was worth the investment, and consider that contract a reward because nobody would have given him 6 years. That's why Boston didn't sign him to begin with. He wanted a long-term contract. They wouldn't give it to him.
Well, we absolutely love him on Team Canada right now at the Olympics.
These guys, it never ceases to amaze me how the persona of these guys changes on a dime. When you see them on the ice, they're just incredibly aggressive. You meet them off the ice, you would never know that it was the same person.
Yeah, I met Marchand. He's a sweetheart. He's really a nice guy.
Yeah, I go back to the Rangers when they had that very good team in the late 1950s, particularly 57, 58. And Louis Fontinato, as Alan will remember, was notoriously tough guy, crazy guy on the ice. And I had him over to my house. My grandmother made Hungarian goulash for him. And Louis Fontinato off the ice was like a saint. He could have been St. Francis of Assisi on the ice, off the ice rather. And on the ice, he's a crazy guy. And you go right down the line. I mean, I don't remember too many guys off ice being what I would consider bad guys. In fact, I can't think of any, really. Maybe Tom Barrasso. No, that was in the dressing room, so that doesn't count. I don't remember any bad guys.
No. It's a job. It's nothing personal, as they said in The Godfather. It's strictly business.
Well, the worst was Billy Smith of the Islanders and the hateful Edmonton Oilers. And who was Gretzky's bodyguard?
Semenko.
Semenko.
Yeah, Semenko. So after one of the games on the island, Smitty is sitting next to Semenko, buying him a beer. And that was Exhibit A. That was Exhibit A.
I'm in Vancouver, diehard Canucks fan, and yeah, we hated Marchand with a passion. It was just still do to some extent. But earlier in his career, he was doing such clownish things that you just couldn't help but hate him. But in 2011, the Bruins stole our Stanley Cup,
that
and
was terrible. I saw that.
Marchand was always rubbed it in. So it broke my heart when I saw a picture of when Marchand got traded to Florida. And I guess Roberto Luongo decided to put on the pads for a practice, and the two of them are skating together and talking. And I just went, no! So yeah, that's how we feel about Marchand. So yeah, it still hurts.
Let me, Maven mentioned Louis Fontenato. Let me tell you one of my stories. I tell this story a lot. Had to be maybe 13, 14 years ago. Gordie Howe was in Florida for some reason, for some event, whatever it was that the Panthers had him as a guest. And he was up in the press box before the game. Now, he was at the time, I would say he was in his early stages of dementia. So, he wasn't totally with it at the time, but he knew hockey. You mentioned hockey, and he was talking to a guy who I thought was a reporter. Turned out it was one of the owners of the team at the time, who owned the team for a short period of time. And I kind of interrupted the conversation. And I mentioned to Gordie, nice to see you, nice to meet you. By the way, I was at the game in New York at Madison Square Garden where you and Louis did your dance. Now, for those who are not familiar with it, one of the most famous fights in NHL history was Fontenato versus Howe. And as soon as I mentioned that, Gordie's eyes, he just lit up. His eyes lit up. And he told me about the event blow by blow. He said, Louis never hit me once. I hit him here, I hit him there. And I had to stop him because he was just going on and on. And then he said to me, when the two of them retired, they became friends and they used to go fishing together. But there was a bittersweet end to this because when it was over, I said to him, Gordie, it was a pleasure meeting you. And we shook hands. Now, this guy was the toughest SOB who ever played the game. And my handshake was firmer than his. So it was kind of depressing from that angle. But he was still a great storyteller. And you mentioned hockey to him, and he was right with it.
I want to ask about Panthers locker room. What do you think that sets the tone? Why are they bonding so well?
It's hard to say, but they have good leadership, and Paul Maurice makes it a point that he treats everybody equally. And even guys who are the fourth liners, guys who are healthy scratches a lot, he lets them know that they are a part of the team. And they, of course, have good leadership. Now, Barkov is not there, but Tkachuk kind of took the role of the leader. When a new player comes in, they always feel welcome. And like, I don't remember who it was who mentioned it, but you when they're on the road, you're at the dinner table. You never know who the stars are and who the extras are because they're all treated well. They're all treated equal. Now, when they won the cup last year, Paul Maurice made it a point of saying how important his fourth liners were and what he did with about 30 seconds left in the game. When there was a whistle, he put his fourth line out there because he wanted them to be on the ice when the final buzzer went off, so they could be the first ones to throw their gloves up in the air and celebrate. So it's I mean, you don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but I've never heard anything about dissension in the locker room over there.
I think the team adjusts really well when injuries happen. I mean, they bring someone up from the farm team, and it usually works great for the Panthers. Not so much this season. Injuries really hurt them.
They do that, and they have a way. Paul has a way of putting people. If he brought up somebody from the farm or a healthy scratch, and somebody on the first or second line was hurt, this healthy scratch who he's putting in now might be a fourth liner, but he has no hesitation about putting them on the first line to substitute directly. And it worked well because some of these guys came in and all of a sudden, they performed. And there's one guy in the team, Evan Rodriguez. He's played on every line and does a good job. But off the top of my head, I remember in the playoffs last year, he brought in Jesper Boquist. He put him on I think the first line. Somebody was hurt and missed a game. I don't even remember who it was at this point. And he ended up scoring the winning goal in the game. So he has no hesitation about putting these people in. Another thing he makes the point of is he doesn't try to change the style of the player. He looks to their strong points and lets them play their own game. He's not going to make them play somebody else's game. And it's worked out well. I mean, this year, of course, you have to discount it. The injuries were absolutely devastating. When you're missing your top players for almost the entire season, these are the results. They've been scratching and clawing, and They won their share of 1-goal games, but this is not the Stanley Cup team that you see on the ice right now.
Alan, do you know much about ships or the marine industry?
I took a cruise a few weeks ago.
The hell with that. I'm talking about the Rangers as the Titanic of the NHL. No, it's not a joke. It's only a joke to some people, not to Ranger fans. Ranger fans are taking it very hard. Now, here's the deal. At the end of last season, when Peter Laviolette got fired, Joe Micheletti, who'd been a longtime analyst, was retiring. So after he was scot-free from the MSG network, he could talk. And somebody asked him what was the biggest problem with the Rangers missing the playoffs. And on the short hop, he said they had no spirit. Okay? So Laviolette gets fired, and now they bring in this other guy who's, to me, a huge loser, but he's there and he's got a long term. And I'm wondering, you're behind the team. I'm trying to figure out how they recreate spirit for this down in the dumps team. I don't understand how you can manufacture it, because Joe says they don't have spirit. How do you get spirit on the team? You're an old Ranger, buddy, a fan. What do you do to it? Or can you do it? Can you infuse spirit into a hockey team?
At this time, it's almost an impossible job. How do you inject spirit into the workplace when the players around you are being moved and traded, and you don't know who's the next guy to go? The way Drury, it's well documented, the way Drury handled some of these movements of players was a disaster, and it certainly doesn't provide incentive to the people who are next. Now, right now, if I was a guy like Vincent Trocheck, who always played with spirit, but he doesn't know if he's going to be on the team the next day because his name is the next one as to go. And if you go look at the house cleaning that they've done, it's after the fact, but you'd love to have some of these guys back now because they really have nothing in the pipeline. They have a couple of draft choices, I think, in the first round this year, but it takes a few years for a draft choice to develop. So there's going to be a few lean years.
Did you say, wait a minute, did you say years or decade?
It might be until I hate to use the word tank, but where they're going to finish this year, hopefully they'll get a high draft choice, but they haven't exactly distinguished themselves with their previous high draft choices. I hate to mention it, but when they got that number one lottery choice and drafted Alex Lafreniere, I thought he was a franchise player. Never worked out. Capo Caco, who was I think number 2, never worked out. So their results with high draft choices have just not been very good. You mentioned the current coach. He's a good coach in my mind, but I don't think he was the right choice for the team. And as I've said many times, I point to some of the younger coaches that are doing rather well with their team, like Spencer Marbury in Washington. And they're not doing that well this year, but they had quite a comeback last year. And the guy out in San Jose, Warsofsky, I think his name is, and a couple of other young coaches that are doing magic. And I think that's what they needed, not I hate to use the term, especially me being and Stan being the age that we are, I hate to use the term retread, but that's what it is. I think they needed a newer and a younger voice to talk for them.
Well, you said you said a mouthful there, because you said he's a great coach in your mind. The problem is he's not a good coach on the ice. So he can stay in your mind and he'll wind up out of the playoffs. But he's the guy missed the playoffs 3 straight years in Pittsburgh. What more do you need to see that this guy is a loser?
Right.
3 straight with Crosby. Then they bring in this nobody who was buried in the Rangers system. He goes behind the Pittsburgh bench, and all of a sudden, They're a terrific team now. So you can't tell me. I mean, what better evidence do you need? One guy's a loser, so the guy comes in, and now Crosby's an older guy. He's playing like he just got bar mitzvah, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, you mentioned from the Rangers. Look at Knobloch in Edmonton when he took over that team. He had no NHL coaching experience. He was in the Rangers system. They let him get away, and look at the job he's doing in Edmonton.
Speaking of Lafreniere, he was drafted in 2020. You guys want to take a guess who from the first round has the most points from that first round in 2020 in the NHL?
I don't know.
It's just looking it up here. So it's actually Tim Stützle. Ottawa, he was picked third. And so none of the first round picks that year have become what I would say a franchise player. So I don't know if we let Lafreniere off the hook, but he looked like he was coming along, and he was, he had that one really good year, and it looked like things were moving along the right track. And
then he got a nice contract, and there it goes.
He became a little feline into a fat cat. Once he got that dough, that's it. Goodbye. He's epitomizes what Joe Micheletti said. No spirit. Come on, give us something, for crying out loud. But that's the key. You give him the big dough, and if you don't have a guy who has the right attitude like a Marchand, then you're what are you going to do? You're going to bench this guy? You bench him 1 or 2 games. You read a magazine, and then they'll put him back in, and that's the way it is.
Yeah. Well, with these no movement contracts that have been doled out, and the Rangers are more guilty of it than anybody, there's just no downside to not giving it your all. And like I watch the Ranger highlights usually on YouTube. They have a 20-minute highlight package of the games, and you can go a whole 20-minute highlight package, and Lafreniere will never even be mentioned. He never comes on screen. So that's the that shows me that he's just not. He's not into it. He's just going through the motions.
Do they have highlights?
No lights.
The spirit issue is primary because the fans all over the league know who's trying, who's not trying. But particularly in New York, they seem to be more sensitive to guys not trying hard enough. And no, I'm not going to go into why it happened, but I've been trying. I'm making this whole thing in my columns on how to fix the Rangers. So I started out with Micheletti saying there's no spirit. So I'm trying to figure out, well, how do you get spirit besides benching a guy, whatever? And I figured out 2 things. One is you have a 25-piece marching band come out in front of these guys and making sure they're playing very loud because they apparently don't listen to the coach, And if that doesn't work, and I don't know whether Al remembers or knows this guy, there's a character they have at the Garden. And at the end of the second period or some break late in the game, they got a guy called Dancing Larry. The Dancing Larry doesn't know how to dance a mambo or cha-cha-cha or any other dance, but he's like a rubber man, and he does this cockamamie thing. I'm saying, what the hell are they, burying this guy upstairs and, in the balcony? Have him, he has more spirit than 20 of those guys. But of course, Dancing Larry will want a no-trade contract. So
he should come up in the first period. He usually comes up in the third period with about 5 minutes to go in the game, at which time it's almost irrelevant at that time. You're right. It's a good point. He should come in the first period.
He's going to want big dough. You have to bring him down. He's in the cheap seats now. He probably has 3 agents already, for crying out loud.
Alan, what teams are built most like Florida right now?
Oh, gee, it's hard for me to say because I don't follow it that much. But look at some of the teams that are emerging. I mean, outside of Florida and the Rangers, I should say, I don't follow it that closely. But some of the emerging teams like San Jose and Detroit is having a comeback. Anaheim, of course, Anaheim now has Joel Quenneville as coach, and unlike the others, I wouldn't call him a retread because he's doing wonders in Anaheim. Uh, I really like San Jose. They could have built a team around Celebrini. I've seen him play a number of times. This guy is just amazing. Uh, and of course, Detroit is having seems to be having a renaissance right now.
Salabrini is a very talented player. 2 goals at the Olympics already, and he's under 20.
Oh yeah, this guy's a franchise player, no doubt. He's amazing. Just watching him.
Yeah.
I did a piece on him for NHL.com about a week or so ago. Then and now, he and Joe Thornton really came into his own in San Jose. It's interesting because you got these 2 teams out in California, and you got one guy with a brand new coach, Rosovsky, and then you have Quenneville, and one team took a chance in one way. You got to give credit, to take a chance in Anaheim on a guy like Joe Quenneville. A lot of people were opposed to him coming back, and he didn't lose it. Not only didn't he lose it, but he had enough time to think about taking a team and coming back. Great story there. Great story.
How tough is it to face your NHL teammates internationally and then reunite with them after the Olympics?
Well, hockey players are a unique breed, and I don't remember who I heard say it, but I remember listening to an interview and a similar question was posed. Like you're playing against a teammate who you're going for a Stanley Cup with, and you're going to hit him just as hard. And the answer was something like, as a hockey player, we're trained to win. It doesn't matter when, it doesn't matter where. That's in the breeding. They're trained to win.
I wanted to mention the Maple Leafs and leadership, because how important is leadership? When I started rooting for the Leafs, the coach was Hap Day, the captain was Silaps, and in 41-42, they made this fantastic comeback in the final. They were down 3-0, and they beat Detroit 4 straight, and they won the cup. And Silaps was a fantastic leader, he was my role model when I was a kid. He went into the Army, like a lot of these guys did. It was World War II was on. At the end of the war, at the end of the war, Apps came back, and he was the captain again in 46, 47. They won the cup. Nobody said they were going to win the cup. They had 8 kids. All their defensemen were rookies except one guy. And Apps was the captain. They won the cup. Then they won the cup again after they added Max Bentley. They had 3 great centers, all Hall of Famers, Max Bentley and Ted Kennedy and Apps. And then Apps retired, and Ted Kennedy became the captain. Now, from what I read and observed as a fan, you couldn't craft a better captain in every single way than Ted Kennedy. So Ted Kennedy was the captain on 5 cup teams. He was a captain again in 49 when they won the cup, and he was the captain again in 51 when they won the cup. The guy won five cups. Now that's what I see as the epitome of leadership. Then they had another great leader on the Leafs, which was number 10, Apps' number, and Apps didn't go crying that they're taking my number, and that was George Armstrong. And what a great captain he was. And you have each guy different style, but it was all there. And of course, Armstrong was captain for 4 cups in 5 years. Okay? No, not 4. 3 straight cups, and then another one a couple of seasons later. And that's the thing that I saw that was the common denominator with those championship teams. Leadership, and they had spirit. And God knows what they would have done if Bill Barilko didn't die in the crash after they won the cup in 51. Who knows? But the point is, this is what I look at the Panthers. They got leadership. I look at the Lightning, and you can't discount Cooper. Cooper is just a phenomenal. Cooper and Maurice, they're like interchangeable great guys, both funny guys, both, and now the Rangers gotta fish for a leader, because this clown that they got now with the C is useless. They thought they were getting something from Vancouver. You can take him back. By the way, Jerry, I'll arrange for him to be sent to you by FedEx if you take him.
Well, if you'll take Pedersen in return, then maybe we could make a deal. But yeah, JT Miller's a fiery guy, but he's not a leader. Never has been. I don't know what they were thinking. Just foisting the C on him the second he got traded for. So, Trocheck is the captain as far as I'm concerned. He's the leader. But the thing is, like, you can ask any NHLer, it doesn't really matter who wears the letters. Everybody knows who the leaders are, and so the C and the A's, they're more, I don't know, just formalities, everybody knows who to follow and who the leaders are. I mean, on Vancouver, the leader was Luongo for years. I mean, so, and I got to tell you, like, having played against NHLers, in summer league and casual hockey and stuff. I played against Tiger Williams and Matt Cook and Cliff Ronning. The thing that I found in them, because I always went and talked to them after the games, after we played. I want to meet them, right? So the thing that I got from them is that winning and losing is absolute number one. They are ultra competitive, like beyond the pale competitive. They don't want to lose at anything. And I remember a story when Ronnie was playing with the Minnesota Wild. A friend of mine was he worked at the hotel, bellboy. He was a bellboy at the hotel where the Minnesota Wild were staying. And there were Canucks and Minnesota playing in the playoffs. The Canucks had won at home, and the Minnesota Wild came walking in, and my buddy said him and another bellboy were standing at the counter when they walked in, and Cliff Ronning was one of the first few that walked in, and so they kind of, gave them the gears a little bit, and Ronning looked at them with a death stare and hawked a loogie right on the floor and right at their feet. So, that's the type of competitiveness you want. You want somebody to hate losing more than they love winning.
I'll tell you how I saw that. One summer, some Canadian promoter had 4 NHL teams in a league at this, I guess it was in Lake Placid, and it was one of these things where you pay money to skate with the NHL guys, and there were 4 teams, two guys on each team. Gadsby and Howe was on the Red Wing team. Chicago had Makita, Pat Stapleton, and they had the 2 teams. So they're down to the final because these were games that were leading to a trophy. And it wound up that the Leafs, who had Red Kelly, and I forget who the other guy was from the Leafs, and against Gordie Howe and Bill Gadsby. Now, my friend Ira Gittler, who is a great jazz historian, no longer with us, I used to play beer league with Ira, and Ira was playing defense on the Detroit team with Gadsby and Howe. And they were leading 2-1 in the third period over the Leafs. And it was late. It was late in the period. Faceoff was in deep Detroit zone. And of course, the best Leafs that they had available were out there. And it was Ira's turn to go on defense. And there was no ifs, ands, or buts. You would go out when it's your turn, and these guys were paying good dough for it. So Gadsby has to come off. You see, the Hall of Famer is giving way to this guy who was, I don't know how old Ira was, but he was like a 4th line beer leaguer, and now he's going out on defense for this crucial face-off deep in the zone, which is going to make or break the game. And as Gadsby passes Ira, one's going off and the other guy's going on, and Gadsby leans over to Ira and he says, "Ira, just get in the way. and he, which he did, and they won 2-1. But the passion, Gadsby had that passion. He's telling this guy, get in the way. That's all he wanted to do, just get in the way. He got in the way, and they won 2-1.
Alan, how much do you think success comes from culture versus talent?
That's anybody's guess. 50-50. I mean, again, speaking in Florida, because I've lived with them from them being bottom feeders to going to Stanley Cup champions. And when Bill Zito came in here, he made a few moves which surprised a lot of people, but they turned out to be ingenious moves. I believe the very first transaction he made was to bring in Patrick Hornquist, who was about as fiery as they get. And it was no secret after a year or two that this guy, I mean, he was past his best years on the ice, but that this guy had spirit like nobody else and really changed the culture of the team. And then he brought in our old friend who's now in Anaheim, Radko Gudas, who was known as a hatchet man, but he had cleaned up his act quite a bit, but he was still just as tough on the ice. And those two guys really changed the culture of the team to a tough, gritty, win at all costs attitude. And then, of course, he brought in his greatest move of ever was when he brought in Matthew Tkachuk. I wasn't really that familiar with Matthew. I knew he was a good player because I see his name way up at the top of the scoring stats every year, but I didn't know anything about his let's say his personality. And this guy came in and he became the de facto face of the team. And Barkov is the captain, and he's a great guy and a great player and a good captain, but he has a very low profile, mild personality. Tkachuk is another story altogether. And the whole culture of the team changed with the players that came in. Then he brought in Sam Bennett. Now, Bennett, excuse me, I compare him to a guy a few years back. There was a guy named Lemieux who was as nasty as they come. And he was a catalyst on winning the Stanley Cup with several different teams. And that's the kind of a player Bennett is. He's the whole team now, where they go out on the ice and there's nothing but grit with them as opposed to, they had a lot of finesse players. Look, Jonathan Huberdeau was a great player. He was the face of the team, and we were sorry to see him go. He loved Florida. He wanted to stay here for his whole career, and all of a sudden he's gone. Now, look at him in Vancouver. He's practically lost there. And not in Vancouver, in Calgary, he's practically lost there. He's pretty much forgotten in Florida because Tkachuk was just so successful. It was one of the best deals anyone ever made to bring in Matthew.
I love that story about Tkachuk where he got traded to Florida and he was out in public somewhere and got into a conversation with somebody and they said, well, what do you do for a living? He said, oh, I play hockey for the Panthers. And he says, you play hockey in Florida? You must not be very good.
His first statement when he came to Florida, he referred to the Edmonton-Calgary rivalry, and he said, now I have to learn how to hate Tampa. And that started before they ever even played a game.
Well, that's the spirit. Rangers had a guy named Trouba who was a very, very good spirited guy. Maybe not the best defenseman in the league, but he was a good hitter, and the teammates loved him. And getting rid of a guy like Chris Kreider, I take Chris Kreider's attitude over 90% of his clowns on the roster right now. And that's the difference. Tkachuk really is a spirited guy, whether you like him or not, whether he's hot or not hot. He's got the spirit. It's with that guy you mentioned, Gudas. I remember him then as this is the kind of, he was like a Fontanato was on the Rangers in the 50s. He had a mean streak, has a mean streak, and he's a guy you want on the defense. That's when the Leafs won their 3 straight cups, they had 4 genuinely tough guys. You had Bill Barilko, tough. Garth Bush, tough. Jimmy Thompson, tough. And Gus Morrison, tough. four guys, four leaders right off the bat. Right? Forget about what was up in the front. So there's a word for the Rangers in French. It's called Gunish Helfen, and it means you can't help it. There's nothing to help. You know what they have to worry about? You take a look at their hot Buffalo Sabres. Buffalo Sabres have missed the playoffs for 14 straight years. Can you imagine? The Rangers are now in their second straight, aiming for how many more? 12 more straight years.
Buffalo has some good talent on that team. I mean, I could see them as a team of the future. They have some nice talent on that team.
Buffalo?
Absolutely, yes.
Here's another great story. All these stories are different. Who would think that Lindy Ruff would come back to this Buffalo team? I think they started off the season like something like 0-8. Everybody was saying, they got to bring this. They actually fired the GM. They fired the GM, which I don't know whether that was nice. But now I'd be scared to play that team. And I'm, good for Lindy. Great for Lindy.
I'd like to go back to the old 6-team NHL and the minor pro leagues, because now, like, you go to an AHL game and the stands are basically half full. Abbotsford here doesn't draw a lot of fans. I'm wondering, back in the day, those minor league teams like the New York Rovers and I'm drawing a blank here for some of the names, but how popular were those pro leagues? Because that was still pro hockey in a high level, because only 6 teams in the NHL, only so many players to play there. So how good was it?
Well, let me tell you something. If it wasn't for the Rovers, which was a farm team for the Rangers from mid-1930s until early 1950s, if it wasn't for the Rovers, I probably wouldn't have gotten into the business, because my dad took me my first game when I was 7. And I wasn't allowed to go to see Ranger games because I had school the next day, and Ranger games didn't start till 8:30 in those days. So I spent only watching Rover games from 1939, 40, 41. I didn't see my first Ranger game. I only saw one game in the 40, 42, 43 season. Those games, if I never saw an NHL game in my life, I would have been happy with the excitement of the Eastern League games. Then I think we had the author on the show a few months ago. My friend Joe Rossi did a book on the Long Island Arena and about the Long Island Ducks. This is no joke. And it's a great book, by the way. And that was great hockey. It was that hockey was real life, the movie Slapshot. No ifs, ands, or buts. and the owner of the team, Al Barron, said, we're the only team in the league where the players stopped to watch the fights in the stands. The only place where the Zamboni driver got into a fight. That book, Jerry, would answer your question, or anybody's question, about how great that hockey was. And of course, it was primitive, because they didn't have glass, at the ends. They had chicken wire, and there was no wire, nothing along the boards, So if a guy was skating along and you didn't like him, somebody would conk him on the head with whatever. It was crazy stuff, but it was exciting. Oh, it was exciting, and you had characters like John Brophy. Most of his career was spent in the Eastern League. John Brophy was a great guy. They had 2 defensemen, Ray Crew and Don Perry. For that time, they were monsters. You couldn't get those guys. You had to go all the way to hell around to get past them. It was wonderful stuff. A lot of great characters. I can remember my favorite goalie was a guy named Nid Pizzad. He played for the Baltimore Blades. Legs Fraser with the Ottawa Senators. I mean, it was wonderful. And of course, when you think about like the late 1940s, 45, 46, 47, 48, guys like Doug Harvey, they were playing minor league hockey. A lot of the guys who became greats in the Canadians Dickie Moore played for the Royals. Belleville played for the Quick Bases. It was wonderful. I don't go away. You can continue. I got to see if I can find the program.
The Rovers were in I think it was called the Eastern League or Eastern Pro League, which was 2 or 3 levels down from the NHL. I mean, the chance of a guy on the Rovers making it to the NHL was almost nil, although a few did. It was the American League that was the feeder, and then there was, I think, the International League at the same time, which was a step below the American League. So the Rovers, as Stan said, they played in a true slapshot league. When I started following the game, the Rovers were gone. They were non-existent, but they were reincarnated somewhere around 1960 or around there. But they didn't play in Madison Square Garden anymore. They played way out in Eastern Long Island. So I did go out to see them a few times, but not that often. But I used to do a little traveling when I was in school, and I did get to see teams in that league in other places. They had teams in some far away, almost obscure places like Clinton, New York, and Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and it was, as Stan said, it was truly slapshot. They were very popular in the towns where they played, but as far as any of these guys making the NHL, it was almost impossible. The AHL at the time had a lot of great players who were just a step away from the NHL because they just couldn't make it. When expansion came along, so many of those guys who were really good players now were drafted, and they played in the NHL. There were a lot of players in that league who were under contract. And go back in a little history, when a player signed a contract, it was like a lifetime indenture. So if you could sign a contract with the Rangers or the Bruins, and then your contract could be sold to the Providence Reds, or I think the Cleveland Barons were unaffiliated with any NHL team. So if you got traded or your contract was sold to the Cleveland Barons, you were never going to make the NHL. And these guys were not even eligible to be drafted because the draft came from NHL-sponsored teams. So there were a lot of guys who played in the NHL who had NHL ability after expansion, but never made it to the NHL. The AHL had, as I said, great players, and I used to travel around with some of my buddies. We went to places like Providence and Springfield and Buffalo. Before the Sabres, there were the Buffalo Bisons. I remember seeing them play, and they were good games. Yeah, just a step slower than the NHL, but they were good games.
I'll show you a historic picture. You know, our friend Jerry played beer league hockey on ice. Well, we had beer league hockey on roller skates, and this is the picture. And you find the Maven? And look at Freddie Meyer certified it as beer league by smoking a cigarette while he played.
I see someone's wearing, it looks like Blackhawk, the Blackhawk emblem on their jersey.
The Black Hawk guy was Bob Shantz, who hit me harder than anybody ever on roller skates. His brother Harry is the goalie. My buddy Freddie Meyer, who was my defense partner, was smoking a cigarette. And I am on the other side next to Freddie Meyer.
While you're doing that, I'm taking something off my wall.
I have to tell you that, oh, wow. Yeah, see that?
Now, I often ask people to identify me in this picture. And this is a part of our team. There's only about 10 guys here. The world famous Crown Heights Canucks of the Brooklyn Independent Hockey League. We played at Kelly Park.
I can identify you. You're the author.
It's interesting because I always say that playing hockey give guys character. And first of all, nobody ever gets me in this picture because I look taller than the rest of the guys. And the only way I could figure that out is I must have been on skates and they must have taken their skates off because believe me, I'm not taller than these guys. But hockey gives you character. I'm looking at this picture and I stayed in touch with a lot of people here. We have a guy who was a company president, a guy who had a major auto supply business, a guy here who was a high school dropout, went in the Army, came back, changed his ways and became a high school principal, a guy here with a national novelties business, a big deal government guy here, and a guy here who was CFO of a major grocery corporation. So hockey gives you character.
Did you ever have a nickname?
Me?
Yeah.
Some I won't repeat here. No, I don't think so. Nah. I wasn't of the ability that they would give me a nickname like Speedy or Flash or anything like that. I played.
I gave you a nickname. You're Big Al.
Dan called me.
Big
You're
Al,
the
yeah.
only guy who calls me
Tough
Big
Brooklyn name.
We asked everybody on this show, what's your prediction for Olympics winner and for Stanley Cup winner? We'll see if you're right in a few.
Well, the Stanley Cup is going to go down to Canada against the U.S., and it's going to be anybody's game. I predict a one-goal game, like in the past. Who's going to win? Flip a coin, because they're almost equal in talent and intensity.
Well, I have to agree with. Well, I don't have to. I agree with Al, but I like to think that the underdog team that could come out with the goal is the Czech team. I'm very fond. I've always been fond of Czech hockey. Well, I was over in Prague, and when was it? '62. I saw first time I ever saw anything that resembled European hockey. And they surprised me. But this is good stuff, and guys are going to get hurt. But that's the players are the ones who push this. And the guys who get hurt, well, that's tough kazabis, and that's all there is to it. And in the end, it's compelling, and that's what we want. We want the games to continue to be exciting. And I can't say that I think the Canadians are going to win because I don't like their captain. I don't think he's a captain, and that's it.
Crosby? You mean the Olympics?
No, I meant
Austin Matthews, yeah.
like him as a leader. I do. I put Crosby way up almost in the Gordie Howe class, except he's done it, and his dirty stuff is a little bit more subtle. But you got to look at him now and compare him with Ovechkin. And Crosby's starting to pull away. Of course, we're not going to see Ovechkin, but that's another. another debate. We'll have to bring the author back for another debate. I wish our team, the Brooklyn Wizards, could have played your clown team. Where did you go? Where did you guys play anyhow? On the sidewalk or what?
We played. We had a regular rink actually and a playground. I played in multiple leagues in Brooklyn and in Queens. Played in the playground, but. The year of the world, that picture I showed you was, we played in a place called Kelly Park. It was next to a school.
I played there. I know that. We played in Kelly Park.
Yeah, by Avenue S. And
I was looking for a fight in Kelly Park. It was. The guy didn't want to fight. He would have beaten the crap out of me, but we won the game anyhow.
That was fun those days.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't fun when we lost.
When you lived in New York in those days, way back when, for those who are not aware, there was no ice here. It was very difficult to play ice hockey. You had to be wealthy because not only to afford the equipment, but you also needed a car. And most residents of places like Brooklyn, like where Stan and I grew up, didn't have vehicles because we didn't need one and we couldn't afford them because the ice was in the suburbs and you had to go and rent space at 1 o'clock in the morning to play hockey. So ice hockey was out for most people of our generation, unless you were either wealthy or an excellent player that you could get sponsored somewhere.
It's amazing that a guy like Adam Fox, from Long Island, Nicky Fotiu was the quintessential guy. He lived in Staten Island, used to take the ferry to Brooklyn, then he had to take the Long Island Railroad all the way to hell out to Nassau County just to learn the game, and look at him. He made it to the Rangers. That's a great story. Great story.
It's a tradition of ours to close the show with the joke. Maeve, do you have one for us today?
I'm giving the credit for this terrific line to Woody Allen, okay? Because it's not original, but I just came across it. And Woody Allen says, I don't want to live on. I don't want to live on in the hearts of my countrymen. I want to live on in my apartment. Okay, gotta laugh. Anyhow, it was a lot of fun, and it's so good to see you, Alan. And
Always good to see you.
I think I could hire you out as a ranger consultant for Spirit. You got more spirit than half of those. Maybe three quarters.
That was great. Thank you so much. Big thanks for joining us. And thanks to everyone for listening. Make sure to subscribe, follow, and share Bottle Rocket. And we'll catch you next time. Thank you so much, Dave, Jerry.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alan.